Good evening. I would like to call the meeting of the school committee to order. It is Thursday, June 20th. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV and audio recorded by Jamie Wixton. Would you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin with public participation, and seeing no members of the public present, we will skip over to good news. Anyone like to share some good news?
The school year is over.
Brennan?
The school year is over. And I just want to say, honestly, to anyone listening, especially recent graduates, have a good summer, stay safe, and prepare for the next part of your life. This is a good time to get a good summer job before you go out. I know there's a lot of good places hiring. Tourism season has definitely started, as I saw, a bunch of buses at Waterways the other day. So there's going to be a lot happening in our town in the next couple months. Make sure you are a safe and productive part of it. That's all.
April?
I just wanted to congratulate the class. I just wanted to congratulate the class of 2024 from both the high school and through the PASS program, both graduations. I know that we'll get a presentation of that, but both of them were fantastic, and I'm excited to have been a part of it.
Thank you. Joyce?
I was just going to say, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend high school graduation or PASS graduation this year, but I did attend preschool graduation, which was really a lot of fun. So I really appreciated that invite. I'm glad I got to go to that. And also the scholarship night, I wasn't able to go to that, but I did see the list of scholarship winners. And as always, there are so many generous scholarship donors in the town of Wareham. I don't ever want to take that for granted, because that's not how it is in every other town. So in Wareham, we're really very, very fortunate. There's so many generous people, and sometimes you're sitting next to one and you don't even know it. So, and then lastly, I would just say that my friends on the unified track team won the state title. So they won for Division II, the state title. The MIA came to Wareham High School, presented them with the trophy. It was really, really great. And so we've agreed that in the fall, we'll invite them here to the school committee to be recognized. But it's really awesome.
I love that.
Jeff?
So the tennis team had a fine season, but and made the playoffs, but lost in the first round. But I think kudos should go to the girls softball team, because they had a great season and made it to at least to the second or third round of the playoffs. Second round of the playoffs, and lost a really tight game, I think 3-2 or something. In extra innings. So kudos to that team and that coach. I think they represented Wareham extremely well.
Thank you.
And they traveled, 3 hours to get to the game?
Say, they had to travel, so, didn't they go to North Adams for the first game?
Oh.
Yep, and then the
Yeah,
second one had to do it.
That's power
I
rankings
don't know
at
who
work.
plans that, yeah. Must be men.
It's a bonding experience for a team, though.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is minutes of the meetings from April 4th, the 25th, May 2nd, and May 16th. And I'm going to try to do this in one fell swoop. If there's any changes or corrections that need to be made, if anyone would like to state those right now. I would say on May 2nd, there's a reference on the Winter Sports Report that the basketball team won 2 consecutive league championships. It should be state championships. But that's the only error I saw in all those minutes. Anyone else?
I didn't see it.
So do I have a motion to accept the
So
minutes as amended?
Seconded.
First and seconded, all in... Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Just, did they also, could you say league and state?
They were not in a league.
They were not in any league?
Right.
Okay, fine.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. Minutes are accepted. We have next up obsolete furniture and technology vote, and I believe you also have a sheet in front of you for some books as well. I don't know, Dr. DeAndrea, if you want to explain any of this.
You should have 3 sheets of obsolete items that will either be disposed of or somehow donated. There's one technology, with a list of items from technology that we're asking to be declared obsolete. Second one is just some workout equipment that is old and broken. There's also a TV cart. And then there's some additional items that was put at your stations from the high school that include some old chemistry books that are outdated.
Anyone have any questions on any of those, either technology, the Wareham Middle School obsolete list, or the high school books?
Where's the Wareham Middle School
It's
sheet of
in the,
paper?
Second sheet in the packet.
Oh, it
If you
is?
Scroll.
So electronically?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have one question.
April?
So I know I ask this every time with the technology. If there is ever any sort of reimbursement, if anything is recycled or sold, if we could ever just get whatever
Something.
amount we recoup from those, I would just like them included in any future,
Report.
yeah.
So we are at the point now that they're coming in August to pick this up. And we do have some iPhones that we will receive reimbursement for. But all of those Chromebooks, the guys strip in the schools and reuse the screens and
Parts.
keyboards and stuff. So all of the Chromebooks, it's just shells, basically, is what they come and pick up. And the same is true with the desktops. So they're taking everything they can out of all of them and just,
Recycling.
I mean, reusing if we can. We actually had to buy screens for the first time this year, replacement screens. That's what goes more than anything else, and audio jacks at the elementary school for, but anyway, we had to buy the replacement screens for the first time this year, and we should not have to buy them several with this list of obsolete.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Is it
Jeff?
fair to say, and I think I know the answer, but when I see something that's broken, we don't really have anybody on staff who fixes broken things, do we?
There will be people who attempt to fix things. Yeah, we'll try to fix things if we can. Absolutely.
Okay,
Whether it's a
I mean-
custodian, whether it's the facilities director, whether it's one of the HVAC guy, or,
So we have a variety of people who wouldn't say, not my job.
right. There are people who will step
we
in and
attempt-
say, well,
so
let's try
before-
to fix it.
So before it shows up as broken and obsolete, we attempt to fix.
Some things, yeah, I mean, some things are still broken.
Yes, I get it. Okay, thank you.
I just out of curiosity, and just because I know there's so many people out there that are trying to, do repairs and stuff like that from home, is there any way that we could maybe offer some of these as like scrap to the, if the public wanted to come pick it up and grab it, like, the old TV cart, maybe someone could use it for something, they'd offer to fix it, rather than, I don't know if it just goes to the landfill or whatever, but if there's some means by which the public could have access to this stuff and maybe do something with it for $5 for free, for whatever, could we possibly maybe do that in the future? Is that something?
I think that if we do that, you have to auction them off.
Okay.
I don't think you can just say, come and get it. It has to be some sort of auction.
Sounds like an interesting DECA project.
Yeah. And the proceeds go towards their store. Sounds like a great idea.
I know in the past, like when they closed Mine It and there were things, they had trouble giving them away. You'd think, but
No, I mean, again, I don't know if anyone will be interested in the broken blue gym mat, but you just never know. And I just hate to see anything go to waste,
right.
I mean, we can't put free outside on the sign.
Yeah, free
On a pallet, yeah, no.
All right, so for the current list for this year, do we have a motion to accept?
Move
moved.
approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you. Next up, we'll ask Ms. Fondulis to talk about the past graduation, please.
Is this on?
Is it,
Is the light on?
is there,
Light?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Okay, so yes, last Wednesday evening was our cooperative alternative schools past night school graduation. It was a beautiful evening. We had 10 graduates this year. The auditorium was full with family and friends. We had 2 dynamic, wonderful speeches from 2 of our teen moms who had quite a story to tell.
What, team moms?
Teen.
Oh, teen moms.
mom.
Okay.
They came to us, had a child, and
Got
finished
it,
their
got
diploma.
it, thank you.
The trend we're seeing, though, this is one of the smallest graduating classes, because what we're seeing now is, and I think it's due to COVID, we're getting students at a younger age. Typically, we used to get just juniors and seniors maybe wanting to, something wasn't working, they just want to go to school nights, get it done. But we're seeing 16-year-olds that are coming to us. So our biggest class right now ever are underclassmen, when typically it was seniors. So, but yeah, and all the 10 graduates, some of them are already full-time in the workforce, some have moved out of state, some are going on to college. So they've all got goals and plans. But it was a nice evening.
Jeff?
So you said you thought it was due to COVID.
It's a
What-
trend. Well, because COVID, the type of students that come to night school, many of them, there's financial reasons, but for a lot of them, it's social and emotional, stress, anxiety, and with the shutdown, that the girl that spoke that night, that was really her story, was her anxiety. She was like, wow, she loved Zooming, she liked being, and then when she had to go back to school, it even heightened her anxiety even more. So for a lot of students, that time frame of being out of school was, hard. And to get back into the swing of a regular traditional setting, many of them are struggling.
So
See them coming younger.
the absence of the socialization that school represents produced anxiety when they actually had to go back.
For some. But for some of our students, they want the non-traditional setting because they just want to do their core academics, get their diploma, and be done with it. They're not in the traditional setting where they are involved in sports or, clubs
But it was also the smallest group
of graduates.
of graduates.
Because we have quite a few that are going to be graduating because we have a big underclassmen
Okay,
group.
so there's not a trend for fewer and fewer kids.
No, it's just
Okay.
younger. We've never seen them come at 16.
I got it. Thank you.
The ceremony was great, and the speeches were excellent. It was
nice,
nice hearing
yeah.
from their point of view, as usual, every year. That's nice.
Yeah.
April?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the past graduation and the years that I've been able to attend it. And I did notice, I feel like this was the biggest audience, even if it was the smallest,
was.
group of graduates. There was and it wasn't even the full class that was present at the graduation. And it was nice to see how many people were there championing for their students to graduate. So it really is nice that we do have this program. And from, listening to even some former students in the past where they had struggles with anxiety, like you mentioned, in the regular classroom setting, and maybe absenteeism because of that and the stress, this really did make it easier for them because they did want to graduate. So from the students that I've talked to, that anxiety was the issue. It really, the smaller instruction, the smaller group setting was definitely beneficial for those that I have talked to about it. And I think it's just a great program for kids to still be able to get a Wareham High School diploma and, not just necessarily a GED, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's a great option for a lot of people, but for them to have like a Wareham diploma I think it's a great program, and I really appreciate all the work you guys put into that.
Thank you, and we have a great staff, and I was so pleased that each and every one of them showed up at the graduation ceremony, so that was really nice.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we're not going to ask you to go anywhere, but I'll ask Melissa Fay to join you, please, and we can hear about the care and sale programs and extended summer school program.
Okay, so currently, right now, the CARE and SAIL, Boost, and the academies, both middle school students and high school, our programs are starting July 1st and ending August 1st. It's 5 weeks this year. It's still Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 2:30, except for some of the academy students will only stay till 11:30. Some will stay the full day, some can leave at 11:30. Currently in CARE, we have 166 students registered. We have 20 teachers, 11 high school interns, 4 paras, 3 college interns, I sound like a partridge in a pear tree, 2 coordinators, a high school intern coordinator. That's a total of 238 students because we have 22 students registered right now for the Accelerated Academy. These numbers for the academies will go up, particularly at the high school, because they're still working on the students' last grades and figuring out who needs NC credit recovery and that kind of thing. We have 50 students signed up for Boost with 4 teachers. We have 48 students currently registered for the SAIL with 8 teachers, 5 paras, and a coordinator. And the academy right now is questioned. Last year in the academy, we had over 60 students at the high school, so I sort of guesstimate that that's what we're going to see this year with 5 teachers and 1 coordinator. So that's, I can give you a typical day in the life of a student if you want to know that, but those are my numbers.
Joyce?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the academy? So I know what CARE and SAIL and ESY.
So the Accelerated Academies came about after COVID. This will be the last summer because, of course, COVID is over and done with, so funding now is less in grants. So the Academy's focus was in the morning, that 8:30 to 11:30, to be a true academic focus like strictly math or strictly science or strictly English. And then they would stay the day and get still academics, but in a more hands-on project base.
Okay. And 238, that seems like a high number. Is that,
It's great with less money because we don't have as much as we had last summer, so we're really stretching the pennies.
okay, good. Okay. All right, thank you.
Jeff?
So I'm going to make sure I understand. When you say extended summer school program, does this apply to elementary school students?
I don't know what you mean by extended summer school. We don't have extended summer school.
That's what it says on the agenda. Extended summer school.
That's me,
That's our
extended school year.
Yep. Special ed.
Okay, so that only applies to students with IEPs. Okay, so if Bethany thinks a student is not going to be successful in the next grade up, second grade, first grade, whatever, what options does she have, and are you involved in those options?
It's the Boost program, the CARE, they're all academic. I have approximately
Okay, so-
40% students on, students with disabilities and over 70% students who are economically disadvantaged.
Take away students with disabilities, even take away students with economic issues.
Well, that's the grant. The grant's focus is those students
All right,
and academic risk.
okay. So Bethany's got X number of kids who are going to struggle in the next grade if they don't get more ELA this summer.
So they're going to do Boost,
They're going to do Boost.
and that's 50 students right now.
That's my question. So,
Yep.
and are they primarily elementary?
Boost is entering kindergarten, entering first, entering second, entering third. There's 4 teachers.
Okay. I'm thrilled to hear that. Well, yes and no. Obviously, 50 kids are struggling, but you have 50 kids.
Well, some of them might be struggling more than others. They are recommendations that Bethany has recommended based from the teachers on whatever their reading level is. Some of them may need a little boost, some may need more.
I got it. I
Yeah.
got it. But the bottom line is we've got 50 kids out of almost 1,000, right, who are getting help. Now, I guess I'll ask you, does that 50 represent all of the kids that Bethany thinks need help? Or are there some she thinks they need help and don't enroll?
Right. That's true. The parents choose not to enroll, and then you're only limited with so much funding.
Yeah, the superintendent knows where I'm going with this. So you've got a subset of the kids who need it, who are getting it, okay? Although you say there's restrictions based on economics.
Well, you only have a certain amount of money from a grant.
Yeah, okay, so you know where I'm going. So how about those kids that decline to get the boost or are not eligible, which is even worse? What are we doing with those kids?
So first of all, the ones that decline, I had this conversation with Bethany last year.
Last when?
Last year.
Okay.
Most of them do not decline.
Right.
Okay? You go to the parents and say, hey, your child needs some
Right.
extra help. We have some extra help, summertime, sign them up. That, they want to do it. She said there were no parents who say, no, unless we're taking a family trip or, we won't be there for part of it because of a family trip or things of that nature. But for the most part, they're on board.
Right, and then the boost is the entire day, 8:30 to 2:30. It is a curriculum that the teachers are trained in, and it's very successful for those students. Students who still need the help, that's what the CARE Summer Program is all about. It's an academic program, but it's different than day school because it's hands-on project-based focus. But they are students who are at risk academically, and as I've said in the past, and I've showed Matt some of the data, we can prove that we lessen the gap of learning loss for our students, the students that do attend summer programming.
So the follow-up question has to be, how many students are held back in the elementary school because Bethany says they're not eligible, apparently they don't decline the summer help. How many did we actually hold back?
I don't have that answer
Yeah.
right now.
It's very low.
Very
At our
few.
few.
It's very low.
It's very few.
Yeah, they
I
really
know.
everybody takes advantage of the programming that we offer in the summer.
Okay, so then my brain says if we've got 5% who are getting extra help, very few are declining, and very few are being held back, then we should do great on MCAS.
We hope to do great on MCAS. We certainly do. Yeah, I mean, we identify the children that are struggling, try to get them help in the summer. Those that we can help, we try to make sure we use our time as efficiently and effectively as possible during the school day when we have them.
You see where I'm going? I mean, I have no choice but to use this logic when it comes to how we're helping our kids get through successfully to the next grade. And we know if they don't succeed in the elementary school, then it's really, really difficult once they get to middle school. So I just hope what I'm hearing, we're going to see the results, because I have this feeling that there's a bunch of kids that somehow are moving forward without getting the boost program. They're not declining, they're not held back, and yet they're struggling. And that's that subset that I don't know what we're doing for them. And I'm not saying, this is not by way of criticism. I am sure you're doing great work for these kids. Okay, thank you.
April?
So I just want to comment to that. I think that if you look at the difference between what our students have report card wise and where the teachers feel like they fall and the data from MCAS, I'm sure that there's a huge disconnect there.
Why should there be?
Because a lot of kids there's a lot of anxiety around and like test freezing. Like I know that he had really great MCAS scores, like for whatever reason, but there are a lot of kids that I feel like MCAS doesn't appropriately represent what they're capable of and what they do. I don't personally feel that I don't think it's a balanced way dictate where our kids are at, in my opinion. And I think that's why a lot of parents you see or hear about a lot of people taking issue with MCAS and why people are signing petitions and trying to do things to change it, especially as like a graduation requirement. And I know that there's a lot of talk about it, like legislatively and at MASC and all of these other things about the validity of it. I don't think it adequately, in my opinion, represents what our kids are able to do, and it stinks that so much funding is tied to it, in my opinion. So I don't necessarily think it has anything to do with where our kids are necessarily at. It's where they're at with that particular test.
But with the chair's permission, then how would you get accountability? Maybe he's not giving me permission. How would you get accountability that our kids are actually learning?
I don't have that answer. The only answer because it's not always something I think is quantitative. I think it's experiential. Like, how are they a decent human being? Do they go to school? Do they succeed in life? There are other immeasurable things that determine success over a standardized test, in my opinion. And I think our students display that.
I am going to cut myself off.
Well, I just think that this is a broader issue, and it's one that maybe can be discussed at a summer workshop down the road here as well. But I don't want to get away from the actual programming that we're offering this summer. But I do think it's something we can bring Bethany in to talk about as well going forward. So,
Can I just ask
Joyce?
I think I probably ask you this every year, but the amount of students that you're able to invite into the program, is that limited by your budget?
Yes.
So maybe you're only getting a certain percentage of kids, but if you had all the money that you needed, you could, so that would be, then you'd be able to
Sure.
Are you saying if you had more money, you could take 100? You could take
If more
100?
money, I could keep taking kids. I have to shut it off because I only can have so many kids in the classroom.
Then with your opinion, with your approval, how many are you denying?
I have a wait list right now of 24 students.
So,
And I'm not denying, I don't like using that word.
I'm sorry.
It kind of bothers me. I'm not denying them access. My wait list, there are some students that their registrations came in like 2 weeks after the due date. Some of the students were in the session and they dropped out halfway. I have to have attendance requirements just like anybody else. So they're put into a wait list because I need to give priority to those students who are going to come and benefit from it. So I do have, and hopefully, I'm not saying, sometimes we get a percentage, because they've registered for this program back in April. Things come up, so we will have some students who will not show up because families' plans change or they move or whatever. So then I can go to the wait list and take some students off. But yes, I do have a wait list. Only for the CARE, not for the Accelerated Academy or Boost,
Thank you.
because they're different grants.
Yes, I get it.
thank you. Melissa, you want to add about extended summer school program?
Afraid to say anything. So our extended school year program this year, as you all know, is a special education program for students who have shown significant regression over long periods of absences from school. So we measure data at the very beginning of the school year to see if there is regression during the summer. We also measure over the holiday break for that December break into January, and then also again in April. So we take 3 different data points. If we see significant regression, then the team meets with the parents and guardians and come up with a plan to add extended school year services. This year we're running 2 again, actually 3 programs this year. We have a 1-week boot camp, which we ran last year as well, which is sort of like a little booster refresher for students to get kind of back into academics as the school year draws closer. That's offered week 6 of our program. We have a 5-week program, and then we have a 6-week program that is specifically ASD, just to keep more consistency in their routine over the summer. We currently have 131 students registered. I'm sure we'll get more. We've tried in the last couple of years to switch over to an all-digital system of registration, and it doesn't always work for every single parent and guardian. So we are also providing paper copies, and we also have several reminders sent out via email. It's on the website. We send robocalls out to make sure that parents are reminded of the deadlines. The deadlines are really important for us because it allows us to be able to make sure that everybody has transportation which is a really important piece of getting all the kids here in the summer. And it also helps us count for lunches and breakfasts, which is really important for Mike and food services, so that we make sure that everybody's fed for the summer. We have approximately 40 staff this year. One of my staff is actually going to Jane's program with one of my students, because that student is going to participate in Jane's SAIL program instead of extended school year. And so one of my staff will go to Jane. And then Jane and I split our nurses, because we keep our high school and our elementary school staffed with a full-time nurse during the programs. So that's where we're at.
So a student in extended summer school program would not be in these other programs, is that correct? That
Yeah.
basically trumps it because it's
Right.
in their IEP?
Yeah,
Okay.
ours is specifically for extended school year services for students with an IEP, and the extended school year services is written onto their service delivery grid. Yeah.
Any questions? Jeff?
You used the term significant regression. That's a really bad phrase. Are the number of students that are experiencing significant regression growing, or is it fairly stable?
It's fairly stable.
And what are the numbers?
We probably suggested or put on IEPs for about 170 students to attend extended school year services. Some parents decide, because of the hours and because of the length of our program, as opposed to SAIL and CARE, that they may want to send their children to CARE or SAIL instead. So Jane and I have like a lot of interchangeable students that go back and forth between us. It's kind of the same with our staff. I think a lot of staff, the special ed staff that are in the self-contained programs, like to stay with their kids through the summer for the most part, so they will work for me, but a lot of other people prefer to work for Jane because there's more hours to be had in the summer. So, but we always are able to fill all of our positions. I think we've only had like 1 year after COVID where we just couldn't get anybody.
That's a big number. 100 and, what'd you say, 30?
175.
170?
177, yeah, somewhere between 170 and 175.
Wow. That's a significant percentage of the total SPED population.
Close to a third.
Yeah.
But you have to remember too, with our ASD programs and our learning centers, where our students have intellectual disabilities and other, a combination of other disabilities, they are all going to experience regression when they're not in school. It's just kind of that natural way that things go for those,
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, but you're talking about kids who are in school, but they're absent so frequently that this regression occurs, because this is a summer program to deal with significant regression, and they've been in school all year.
It's over, so we measure it during the vacations. So when we have the long vacations and they're out of school for a week and a half, the entire summer, that's when we're measuring regression. We don't measure it during the school year. We measure it during the times when they're not in front of an educator. That's where we're looking at dips in their performance or any regression that we might see. And it doesn't just have to be academic. It could also be social emotional regression. And we take that data, and that's how the team decision is driven to suggest extended school year.
Now, it sounds like these kids would be really better off if they were in school constantly. And we don't charge them, correct?
No.
This is part of their IEP.
Correct.
And they get transportation as well.
Correct.
So this is just a question of getting them to the program.
Correct.
Thank you.
Brennan?
I was just going to add in, a small example. Like, for example, my son is on the autism spectrum, and it's a lot easier for him, even though he does well in academics, very well in academics, just to keep into the routine of school. It's easier for him to go to like the SAIL programs, and I always use the wrong one. He enjoys the programs. It helps him keep kind of the structure. And I know that my son is an example of one of many kids who are fine students. It's not because they're behind or they're not up to their grade level academics. It's just much easier for them to continue on a successful path if they have the continued structure of school throughout the summertime.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jane and
Thanks.
Melissa. Good luck
you.
this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kristen Flynn. and several reports.
Thank you. In your packet, you have the monthly financial reports for April and May, and these reflect just the final spending of the budget for this year. In April, we were approximately 72% spent. In May, at the end of May, it jumped to 82%, and as of today, our budget is 97% spent, and that includes all of the teacher paychecks through the end of for the summer. So we are, in good shape. We've been monitoring the budget as we wind down a lot more frequently for the line items and making sure that they are appropriately budgeted, and been doing some budget transfers. So I don't really have any specific comments on the budget. I don't know if there's any questions on either of these two reports.
So you've encumbered all of those paychecks, is the bottom line?
Yes, and actually, they've been paid. They've been paid out as of the last day of school.
They get paid out on the last day of school for 2 months worth of?
Correct. Correct.
Oh, so it's more than encumbered, it's paid.
It's paid.
I didn't realize that, okay.
So, and we've encumbered everything that we are aware of that could be coming down the pike. There's always random, things that pop up the last few weeks, repairs that need to be done. There's always invoices from consultants sometimes that, you'll get for services that you're just waiting for, so they'll come through. But we feel pretty good. I feel pretty good that we have identified at this point anything that we can. But there's always, there's never not an unexpected invoice or cost or something that comes in.
When do you close the books?
So we have to receive all invoices by June 30th or shortly thereafter. We will do our final warrants the next week, 2 weeks, and those are due to the town by, I believe, July 8th. So then any invoices after that are received, or sometimes projects are started. For example, as soon as school stops, some maintenance things maybe at the schools that you have to wait till school's out. Those might be finished over the summer, so we'll put them on the encumbrance list. So closing the books usually takes most of July and into August, just to make sure that we have everything, because once we give that final encumbrance list to the town, then anything that comes after that becomes a prior year bill and can't be paid until town meeting, with a vote of town meeting and that is many, many months later. We do have some flexibility with some of our revolving funds if there's an appropriate fund or grant that can be used. So there is some flexibility with that, but it is a very busy and difficult time of the year to make sure we've got everything paid and funded, and starting up the new year also. So there's really not a big break in time.
So if it makes that encumbrance list, that's critical.
Correct. So we have to put a lot of thought and effort into that to make sure. And sometimes, if something comes through, say after the encumbrance list is due. The encumbrance list is due July 11th, so that's really soon. That's kind of difficult. That's not kind of difficult, that is very difficult. But I hope that there is some flexibility if a rogue invoice comes through, that we can just add it on there, because oftentimes, at least in the past few years, the invoices on the encumbrance list are not approved for payment until October or November. So it behooves the vendor to get their invoices to us before July 1st. And we've been sending out emails, everyone that has some responsibility, and that has been really good about tracking things down.
I'm going to have to remember that phrase, a rogue invoice.
Any other questions for Kristen? Thank you,
Okay,
Kristen.
the next on the agenda is the hourly rates. And this is a schedule of our hourly rates that we ask the school committee to approve every year if there's any updates to them or any additions. So I know that Jamie and Erica and payroll have worked really hard on this list to try to make sure we've codified anything that we can think of that we pay out so that we have a document that reflects why we paid someone the amount that we did. And these rates are obviously for people who don't have contracts. So we do have some updates, and they are in yellow, so I'll go through them. The top one is for substitute teachers. We were currently paying $105, and that I believe was from January 2021, and we're looking to increase it to $110 for a daily rate. And these are our on-call as needed subs, not the permanent intermittent subs. And what we looked at were some neighboring school districts and to see how we compared, and we were low. We were kind of low, so we brought it up to be more in the ballpark of those neighboring school districts. Similarly, for the permanent intermittent sub, we raised that to $130 a day, and that puts us right in the ballpark of Bourne, ORR, and Carver. And the other school district that we looked at was Dennis Yarmouth. So we're just trying to get into the ballpark of some of our neighbors. I know that we spoke to the principals about this, and they reiterated how important it is to have reliable subs who come in, as needed every day. And so we felt it was important to increase those to remain competitive. Similarly, for substitute paraprofessionals, the current rates were $92 for the daily as needed and $95 for the permanent intermittent substitute paraprofessional. So we're seeking to raise those slightly from $92 to $95 and from $95 to $100. The next one was the substitute cafeteria rate that was recommended by our food service director, Mr. Russo. And he's asking to increase that to $16.50 per hour, an increase of 50 cents. And this is to be able to keep pace with minimum wage and to be more attractive to be able to get people. It is difficult sometimes to get some of these subs that just want to come in as needed.
Is there a reason in this section that the substitute custodian didn't go up to the same?
No, it just wasn't needed at that point. It was not something that we find that is difficult at this point. So this was recommended, like I said, by the food service director, and this custodians is not something that we've heard over the course of the year from the principals or the facilities director.
Is it
that they're having trouble?
Do we tend to utilize substitute cafeteria more than substitute custodian?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yes, I would say so.
So we don't typically have substitute custodians. That's
I
why
would
it's
say that-
typically not an
right.
issue. Okay.
I would say the CAF subs are used a lot more frequently than the custodial subs. We also increased the CNA to $25.50 per hour and added the translators for the curriculum rate, and that's specified by the Unit A contract. And I believe it's around $37, around $37.52.
And what is the current CNA?
I think it was 25. So it's a 50-cent raise. We have, I believe, 3 CNAs. Is it 3 CNAs currently? Right now, we have 3 CNAs. Also, for the cafeteria, Mr. Russo is looking to raise it from $15.50 for the cafeteria monitors to $16.50 to be the same as the substitute cafeteria. And those positions, the cafeteria monitors and the sub-cafeteria workers, they're paid out of the food service revolving fund, so that doesn't affect the budget at all. Bus monitors, we're looking to raise it a little bit more than the others, from 16 to 18. And this is a position that I know that we have had trouble finding people for in the past. On the second page, we added the athletics rates for the positions that we have. This is not something that we had the school committee vote on in the past, but we felt it important to have it documented what the rates are. So you can see the rates per game, and these were recommended by our athletic director, Mr. Rodricks. So scoreboard, $50 per game, shot clock, $50, scorer, $50, tickets 50, announcer 60, and security 50. And then for some state tournament and weekend games, the pay is increased to $60 for tickets and security.
So is that like doubled because of a JV game and a varsity game?
Yes, the people that would work, will work the JV games and the varsity
Would
games
get
do
100.
get more. And then the after-school locker room attendant, also $50. And again, these were not ones that we had put on this sheet in the past, but we're adding to them, to the sheet, so we have it documented
But they're
and
not,
approved.
they're not new. Those are existing rates.
Those are
that- yeah.
existing rates, right. Those are the rates that Mr. Rodrick gave us. And finally, beyond school time, similarly to athletics, these were what we were paying or what Ms. Fondulis recommended. And these are some of the positions that she has. And these two are paid like food service through her grants. The grandparent group facilitator, child care provider for the community cafes, or the grandparent group's play group provider, and the facilitator for community cafes. And those range from $25 to $35 an hour. So those are the updates to our hourly rates.
Jeff, and then April?
So, security. Who is providing security besides Carl? I mean, who is a security person at a game?
Right, so I believe it's a current staff person that just is at the games, making sure that things do not get out of hand, out of order, that someone in the stands, especially if Mr. Rodrick is not able to attend the game because he's attending another game or is not available that evening to be
What's-
there.
But security has a connotation to it which says that in theory it could get physical. Is that an accurate assessment?
I wouldn't say physical. I believe it's a MIAA requirement that there is some sort of administrator or security at each event if there is audience members who are out
Spectators?
of control. Yep, that they are, it's addressed, and there's someone there to address it. And if it did rise to a level where, where the person felt threatened, they would be the person that would call the police and say, these people need to be removed.
And believe it or not, even at a tennis match, I see people who I know, and I have this feeling that they're representing administration, but I don't think of them as security, and because that has a different connotation. So what you're basically, they understand they are not to get physically involved, but they are to make the phone call in case that person is needed.
Exactly.
Okay.
So perhaps game supervisor would be a
Yeah.
better title. That's just what comes through on the pay sheet.
I'm not in love with the term security, but I've made my
So
point, but okay.
perhaps game supervisor or something like that would
Okay.
be better.
I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying, as long as they know their role. And it's a little vague. State tournament games, that's very specific. Some weekend games. Is that implied there's discretion as to whether it's raised from 50 to 60?
That I can't
It's a little
say with any
vague.
certainty. It is, yes, it is.
I
vague.
think I would ask Ed to be a little bit more specific, just so there's not a problem about who gets 50 and who gets 60.
April?
So my only issue, and I'm going to go back, I feel like everything else seems fair, competitive, whatever. My only thing is I would like to make the substitute custodian match the substitute cafeteria and have that be $16.50. Whether we use them or not, I don't think it should be less. That's my only suggestion. I just don't, I think custodians sometimes, even if it is a substitute, they do a lot and they handle a lot, and I wouldn't feel right with that being lower than anything else.
I'm not opposed to that.
Joyce?
The substitute teachers, $130 for certified. Is that a new category? Do we differentiate between certified and not certified for the permanent intermittent now?
No.
Okay,
That's
so
new.
that's a change.
So
Okay.
when we compared to other towns, they did differentiate between certified and not certified.
Okay.
So we went around and around on what would be the best way for us to, and I think that is significant if somebody is certified.
By certified, you mean what?
Certified teacher.
Massachusetts?
By DESI, yes.
Got it,
as-
okay.
as
So like it could be a retired teacher who's certified but just wants to be a sub?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, only under permanent intermittent sub, not under
Right, not a
regular
daily.
sub. Yeah, okay, okay. Thank you.
So do I have a motion to accept these changes as amended by Apes?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you.
Oh, one minor question. Is there enough here that it impacted that it will impact the budget? Or is this pretty negligible?
Well, on a per-day basis, it is negligible, but when you go across 180 days and the number of subs, it does add up. So to answer your question, it will, it may impact the budget, depending.
So it has
On
not
you.
been budgeted?
No.
I'm not talking about April's 50 cents.
Right, no, the teacher subs, no.
Okay, so we didn't technically allow for this in the budget.
No, we did not.
Have you even attempted to quantify what it might add up to?
I did, and
course you did.
for the permanent intermittent, I just want to double check, I did look at this. So it was, permanent intermittent, we went up to, 120. Well, we'll go with the regular sub, 110 to 105, that's $5 times 180 days, $900 for the year, right? $5 a day, but that's for one, exactly, correct. So for the permanent intermittent sub, we increased it to 130, and I
Well,
believe.
before you get to the permanent, so well, that's ones.
One.
We should multiply that one by how much, many?
I guess that I don't know, because those are just the on-call as needed. So the PI subs would be a better. So
Okay.
we increased that to 130 from 120. So 10 times 180, 1,800 a person times, I believe, 15. Are there 15 PI subs? And that's about $27,000, so.
Yeah, and that's just one category.
But that is the heaviest.
I understand it's the heaviest.
Right.
Okay,
So now the FY25?
Yes, I have two more. So you also have, I had sent it, you have the hard copy at your table, and I had sent it earlier today, was the updated FY25 line item budget. And back in December, I believe, you voted on the FY25 budget, but we had yet to finalize any of the necessary cuts that were needed for the budget. So what I've done here is I've put some time into trying to put the budget, make the line items correct as they're reflected as of today for the cuts that were necessary. So on the email that I sent, I had a little explanation. So what I did was I took the FY25 preliminary budget, it's on the left-hand side, and I added several columns. The first column next to that is the FY25 planned offset. Now, those are the offsets that we talked about during the budget development process, our typical ones: circuit breaker, Title I, special education 240 grant, food service offset. So those we were already aware of. Then, as we went through the budget development process in the late winter, early spring, we were able to identify some additional offsets, and we identified a little bit more out of circuit breaker, 100,000 out of circuit breaker, some more from food service after discussing with the food service director what we could use for indirect costs. We also added the transportation revolving amount that we're receiving, McKinney-Vento reimbursement this year. We plugged in 100,000 for that. And we also leaned on our grants a little bit more. We thought at the time it would be the Student Opportunity Act grant for an additional offset, but we are going to be able to use some Title I funds instead, so that's a small switch. So that's that second column. I'm sorry, the second column, correct. So the third column that says FY25 adjustment to preliminary, so these were any adjustments that we were made for any retirement savings, anticipated retirement savings, any cuts to the budget, whether they be positions, eliminations of positions, reductions of positions, any savings that we identified from line items that as we got more into it, more information became available, any other cuts that were recommended by the principals during the budget process in the late winter, early spring. So that was that column. And the final column now, we had to add in, at the time of the budget, we didn't budget for the settled contracts for Unit A and Unit B and Unit D. So we had to add that in to effectively increase the line items. So the goal in all this was to obviously get to the amount that was voted at town meeting, which we did, so you can go through and see on the final page that it all adds up to what was approved at town meeting. And I tried to put in notes for what those changes were to reflect those. Some of the ones that I'll highlight is, on the first page, you'll see lease savings on Chromebooks. By funding Chromebooks in an alternative way, we were able to trim some money off the budget. Some of these that say adjustment for actual usage, we first increased the expenses line by 5%, but then trimmed that back a little bit once we got on in the fiscal year to see what we were actually looking at. You'll also see in notes if there's a grant offset, which grant it is. So you'll see Title I, and SOA. There's a switch from SPED home instruction between regular ed and special ed. It seemed like we were utilizing more of the special ed funds, so I wanted to put those in the right account. Some other ones you'll see on the first page, there's a reduction about 3/4 of the way through where it says system nurses' salaries. What that was is in the original budget, we had budgeted for a floater nurse, and that position was not filled, and we eliminated it when we knew that we needed to reduce the budget. So some other ones that might be, you can see the circuit breaker and the SPED 240 grant offsets coming in, and also ones that are labeled ESSER 3. What we did is we took some staff that had been paid by ESSER that are paid through the summer. They are able, ESSER grant runs through 9/30, so because we had funds in the FY24 budget due to some position eliminations and some tuitions that came in favorably, we took those staff members off of ESSER for the remaining months and put them on LEA to preserve ESSER to use for FY25, where our problem was obviously more, to help with that, to help with the budget gap. Some other things I'm just trying to explain, let's see, you'll see a lot of retirement savings and position reductions. The food service indirect cost offset, so that's the food service account is allowed to pay for indirect costs based on a formula. So every month, Mr. Russo gives me that amount, and we use it against the utility bills. There was a position elimination in transportation, you see, and we had originally budgeted for a driver trainer. That position wasn't filled, and so then it was eliminated from the budget. So that's what some of them are. We had the emergency shelter reimbursement funds coming in that we've received that are going to help out with our ELL salaries. And it's mostly, like I said, position eliminations and retirement savings and some use of grants. So I don't know if there's any specific questions, but this should put, as we know now, the appropriate amounts in the appropriate lines. And there's always adjustments as the year goes through. But this was an attempt to write the budget so that when we go to load it in a couple of days, we have the proper amounts as we know them now.
And so how confident do you feel overall in that?
Right now, I think I don't have any reason not to feel confident, but we have a lot of still question marks, and you always do, not just this year. You know, positions that are vacated, people that fill the positions. You might budget it at one amount, and it comes in at another. So if that happens a few times, you might pick up some money if you've got 10 people, and, you know, you might pick up or lose quite a bit of money depending on where your people are hired. So those are the questions there with that. And there's always questions with utilities, transportation, special education tuition. So the good news is that we've been able to build up the circuit breaker balance. So if special education costs increase, if we get students that come in that were unexpected, in fact, we know since the budget was developed that we've had some students move in just this past month. But right now, we have the circuit breaker funds, and that's exactly what those are for, to fall back on. So this is, I think, as good as it gets right now, but the chore is just to continue to monitor it as we do every month and make sure that we're where we need to be and can make adjustments, you know, during the year.
April?
I just want to thank you for the notes and for each reason of where things came from. That was really helpful in understanding how that works. So I know that probably took a lot, but I appreciate that because it makes it easy for a non-budgety person to be able to know what we're talking about. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Nope. I'm sorry, Joyce.
I just want to say similarly that, just thank you. This represents a lot of work, I know, and so we appreciate that hard work that.
It's
into
work
that.
now, but it makes it easier down the line too, because in a few months, if I say, well, what happened here? Why is this? Oh, I can refer back
Right.
to this. So it was time well spent.
Well, thank you.
All right, so then we have a transfer we have to look at?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, didn't see. My peripheral's not there, sorry.
So this document makes me nervous for two reasons. One is I didn't think we were going to have to use the emergency shelter money, but it's in here to the tune of $160,000. I take it we had to use it. There was no other way of balancing the budget if we didn't use it. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and I will also say that those funds have to be used for the students that, you know, for a specific purpose. So if we didn't use them, in this year to pay, say, the ELL teacher salaries.
You mean next year?
Next year, correct. I'm on
I
to
get
next
it.
year
I
already.
get it.
So then I don't know how else we would have spent that. So it was beneficial, but
So
the
you
trouble
saved money
is,
somewhere else.
right.
Got
So-
it.
Or prevented the elimination of more positions, or the cutting of more expenses.
Do you actually have the money?
Yes.
That's always a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, are you expecting more?
There is one more upload that will come over the summer. And in addition to that isn't reflected on here because this is breaking news. The Department of Ed allowed us to file early, so to speak, for the McKinney-Vento reimbursement, only for those students that are in the shelters, the emergency shelters, that are being transported to their school of origin. So for example, we may have a student at one of the shelters here in Wareham that was moved there from Fall River. So we are sharing with Fall River to transport that student back to Fall River to their school. So the Department of Ed a few months ago had this program that we could upload all of our costs for these students for the months of, I believe it was December, January, February, through March 1st, and we would be reimbursed. And I completed that, hadn't heard anything, and just today, we were notified that we received reimbursement at 100%. So just to quantify that for those 3 months, what was it? December, January, February, 3 months for those students, it was $49,627. So what that means is we get that now, but then when we file the end of the year report, that will come off what we get the following year. So it's not really additional money, but we're just getting it earlier.
So it means we have $49,000 we don't have to ask the town for because we're getting it now? Or does this have to still go through the
I
town?
believe this still, what I have to find out from DESI, because it wasn't clear how that money comes through, whether
Kenny
it's
Vento
like the
always go to the
McKinney-Vento,
town.
if it's gonna act like that, and it's gonna go to the town, and we have to
We
ask
may
for
need
it
to
to
put
be
it on town
appropriated
meeting.
back. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Or if, you know, it's given to school departments,
Directly?
you know, directly without further appropriation. So that wasn't clear, and it also isn't clear where that money goes. But the good news is that we have, you know,
So
some
it's a cash
some
flow,
relief on
it's
that.
positive cash flow, but it's not
Correct.
positive over, okay.
Correct.
But the thing that, did you, by any chance, every time I ask this question, I know you've already done it, but every, it looked like every adjustment to actual, or whatever phrase you used, you had a lot of them, adjustment for actual usage, okay? They all looked like they were brackets, which means you reduced,
Right.
okay? What was the total amount you reduced spending by as a result of adjustment for actual usage?
I don't, I can total that for you. Let's see if I have that
Ballpark
somewhere. I
then.
don't have it.
It looks like it's a
but I
pretty big
did-
number.
Let's see. Wait a minute.
And the reason I'm nervous is because actual usage today or over the last 3 months doesn't mean that's the usage a year from now or 6 months from now even. So
Correct.
that's why I'm nervous if that's a really big number, because it could be, it could grow by 20 or 30 or 40%.
So what I did was, in that case, I did take a look at a couple years of history. And for example, one good one to highlight is the first one, the school committee contract services, and that's the legal services line. So that was reduced by 50,000 because we haven't come close to using that. And my line of thinking for that also was, not only have we not come close to using it, but we are hopefully through the biggest negotiation. So where we would tend to use the attorneys more would be during, when you're negotiating your larger contracts. In some cases, a lot of them were inflated by 5%, and we hadn't even come close to spending what was level funded. So some of these, I just brought it back down to level funded because we hadn't spent it.
Bottom line is you still, even after subtracting all this money, you still feel it's reasonably conservative.
I think so. I don't think that I brought anything below level funded, other than, for example, the example I just used. There was some reallocations among the utilities because it was found, I found that we have more money in some utility lines versus others. The Wareham Elementary Electric is a good example of that. In some cases, the Mr. Palladino, the high school principal, as part of the cuts that he made, he reduced some of his expenses, and some of them, you know, they were true to what we had been spending. So, you know,
Okay,
short of
I'm good.
rogue increases, I'll use the word rogue, you know, there's always adjustments,
Just
and quite honestly,
One final question,
Yes.
since you brought it up. Last summer, we had, I think it was last summer, time flies, we had some really serious HVAC problems at the elementary school. This is a really hot week. How are they doing?
So the issues that we had arose, it was 2 years ago, because
was
it
it
was
2
the
years?
first, yes, but,
Okay.
so it was trying to adjust the controls
I
to
remember it
using
well,
it.
yes,
Right.
okay.
So unfortunately, we haven't seen a big reduction in the electric consumption at Wareham Elementary. I know that Eric and his staff work very hard to monitor the controls. The problem is that the building is used throughout the summer, and to keep it cool to a comfortable temperature, using it for our summer programs.
Believe it or not, I wasn't asking about
Right.
dollars. I was actually, are they able to keep it comfortable?
Yes, they are able to keep it comfortable, correct. However, the flip side to that is that comes at a cost. So that's,
I
so
got it.
the financial aspect of that hasn't gone away, but the ability to control and keep the building
Not have to bring in
comfortable.
emergency
Correct.
dehumidifiers and...
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So we understand a lot more, or I should say they understand a lot more. And because,
Thank you.
so that was, so that's the FY '25 budget. And my final item is a budget transfer for FY '24. And so these are, if I can find where I'm at now with all my papers. So these are hopefully the final FY '24 budget transfers that we need. So some of these are accounts that we anticipate will be in deficit and some that have gone into deficit. So I'm gonna go through some of the reasons for these here. The first one at the top, we're adding to district information management, and that's because we are looking to upgrade the camera systems at the middle school and the high school. So we need a little bit more money in that line item. You'll see student services sped tutoring. This is the special ed home tutoring. This is an account that is very unpredictable, that we do some transfers in, and you can see that that was reflected in some of my adjustments here. I made an adjustment from regular ed tutoring to sped tutoring. This year, we did have additional tutoring that wasn't expected due to some further requirements that a student needed that was out of district. Let's see, so some of the other ones, high school subs, teachers and nurses. So that account, and that can fluctuate and is very hard to predict simply because sometimes you have long-term absences that you don't know of 18 months prior when you're setting the budget. If you're going to have a long-term absence or, someone is ill. So that there is subject to what happens with staff. So we do need more money there. Some other ones, the athletic directors and coaches' salaries, I needed to increase that. And what I found out, because I was surprised, I said, well, I don't understand why, I was off by the amount that I was. And it turns out that what I didn't realize and what I've made an adjustment for now in this budget is that the driver's salaries for any of the athletic runs are included in that line item. So so you see reflected transfers out of transportation regular salaries, and we've used that, and that, fortunately, the funds were budgeted, they just were not budgeted in the correct line item for that.
So, I'm sorry, which line item are the drivers?
Athletic directors and coaches' salaries.
Has transportation drivers?
The drivers, our own drivers that do our athletic runs. So, right, so now I know, I wouldn't have expected it to be there. It
How
does,
about changing it to something more logical?
right, it does make sense for the DESI code, but it doesn't make sense for the label. So, so that is an adjustment, but at least now I know. Transportation contract services, again, this is for the out-of-district, either homeless or SPED. We've got a few, we're running very low, and so I just wanted to make sure that we had enough for any end-of-year bills that might come more unexpected. So I wanted just to put some money in those lines so that we don't go into deficit. This was sort of a partial preemptive move so that we would have funds in those accounts. You'll see increasing for West utilities. Again, just a small amount. I think we've gotten a much better handle on the running of that building, but it does cost a lot more than was anticipated. And district facility salaries. When I talked earlier about changing staff, year-round staff that were being paid out of ESSER and using preserving the ESSER funds for this summer. That's why you see that transfer there. And then I have a transfer from collaborative tuition to private tuition. This is a factor of a couple of things. We have a student that was in a collaborative tuition who was, the placement was changed to a private school tuition, and we just talk about a rogue bill. We're just got a $60,000 plus bill for this student going back to that. We also have some students that we received an LEA assignment for, meaning that we were in dispute through DESE with another town over who's responsible for the student. So that came to us. And also we had, with any remaining funds that we had in these, we wanted to pay some of the ESY tuitions. Mass General Law allows districts to pay 1 year's worth of collaborative tuitions and up to 3 months of private tuition, so that schools can, leverage their funds that way. So that was another effort to try to preserve circuit breaker and preserve the FY25 budget with funds that we have now in a manner that DESE and the law allows. So that's the transfers that I have.
Motion to accept? Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Jeff?
Why are district facility salaries 0?
Because we've exhausted the line for LEA. So it's, as we speak, it's probably in the negative because we exhausted that
Probably.
line, switching it. Yes, it is actually, there's 1, 2, 3 people coming out of there, and it is in deficit since I prepared this transfer because of switching those staff members off of ESSER into LEA. So it was never funded to have those positions in it. But this was an effort to use funds available in other lines to fund their positions.
I get where-
Yep.
I get where the 28.5
Yeah.
come from. I was just surprised to see nothing.
Right,
in-
right. So right now, as of right now,
That's all right. Don't worry.
It is in deficit right now, I can tell you that.
Okay, no worries. Nothing would prevent me from approving this, but I do think the high school substitute teacher line needs to be looked at. But
I agree.
I'll second April's motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the budget transfer?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen, for
Thank
all
you.
your work. All right, Dr. DeAndrea, you're up with the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. You all have the superintendent's newsletter in your packet. I just have a couple of quick items. One is a gift that our middle school was able to go to Water Whiz on Friday, June 14th. This is coming after the trip. I know that's a bugaboo for Mr. Sweat. We learned of this on May 21st, which was after our last meeting, so that's why it's coming after. But it was a great day and a great event where the kids got to go and spend the day at Water Whiz, and they had a lot of fun. And, so
I heard
asked-
behavior was excellent there. I heard behaviors were excellent.
Yeah.
And everyone had a
It
great
was
time.
Beautiful day.
Great,
Yeah.
and they had a good time. So
Dylan was lifeguarding, and he was thrilled to see some of his old middle school teachers.
Actually, I think it was Joyce's bugaboo, not mine. Not getting trips approved.
no, that was overnight trips, I think, was Joyce's bugaboo.
Well,
maybe
Yours
another
was
one.
accepting the gifts after.
Oh, yes,
Receive
you're
the
right.
gifts.
You're right.
So I asked that you accept it post-trip.
As long as they were great citizens,
Gratitude.
it's all good.
So
Yeah.
moved.
Second, and I refer back to my comments before about what a generous community we have. It was really, really nice of them.
Absolutely. So all in favor of accepting and thanking Water Whiz for the donation, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
500.
And lastly is, would you please accept the bill and payroll warrants as listed in the newsletter?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 500.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeAndrea. Just quickly on the school committee report, first I just want to announce that we agreed in executive session to negotiate a succession contract for the superintendent. We have until October 25th to reach an agreement, so we'll be working on that in the near future. Committee members have received subcommittee assignments. Speak now or hold your peace for 1 year. We want to remind people that the mass conference deadline is early bird deadline is July 15th. And Jamie, would you like people to notify you if they intend to go, or do you want us to register ourselves? Okay, send you the information. Will do, thank you. And we are talking about potentially having a summer workshop. If you have some topics, committee members, that you'd like to discuss at such a workshop, please submit them to me in the next 2 weeks, and I'll work with the superintendent potentially on an agenda for such a workshop where we can talk about issues that are important to the district.
When would this workshop be?
Don't have a date yet. It would probably, I'm guessing maybe beginning of August, potentially, sometime in August. We get a little break for everyone here. It'd be nice. But I'll get a date out, or possible dates that we can talk back and forth about what might work for most
Okay.
people. And I think that is it for school committee business. Anyone have any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 500. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Hope everyone has a good summer.